Healthcare is ruthless in seeking out and exposing human failings, and leaders must contend with a kaleidoscope of intersecting pressures and priorities.
The board's responsibility is for the overall vision and the long-term objectives of the organisation. But it is a mistake to imagine that they themselves alone can provide effective leadership in a complex organisation which consists of many thousands of people, all of whom have different jobs and a different perspective on the challenges and opportunities of those jobs.
För att nå de mål som man har satt upp så är det mycket viktigt att vi har ett stöd ifrån ledningen, från styrelsen, från direktörsorganisationen. Men också att man får med sina medarbetare på att förstå de mål som man har satt upp och också vara villiga att sträva emot samma mål. Det är en absolut nödvändighet.
We use the metaphor of what we call the cone in the cube. Imagine there's a cube, and inside is a cone, and there are two peepholes. Well, the people who are looking through the side view see a triangle, and the people who are looking through the top view see a circle. And we say that's a very simple problem. However, if you're dealing with a problem set or you're dealing with a crisis, they can look at that from very different perspectives and start competing about whose perspective is best. We use that metaphor to describe what happened at the World Trade Center on 9/11 here in the United States. There was a history of conflict between the fire department in New York and the police department. And so when they went out to buy radios, they were not interoperable. They couldn't speak to one another. So after the planes hit the building, the fire department did what fire departments do. They had a command center at the bottom of the building. They had a vertical view of what was going on. They saw a fire up top there. And so they were sending firefighters in to assist with the evacuation. The New York Police Department had a helicopter that was flying around the building, so they had a horizontal view of what was going on. And they could see that where the planes hit, that the jet fuel had exploded. The girders were red hot, about to melt, and when they did, the top of the building would fall on the center and the building would collapse. So they got on their radios and ordered all police to evacuate the building. That day, some 23 police and 343 firefighters perished. And part of it was that they hadn't worked as leaders to build that connectivity of effort. So we've been teaching the lesson of the cone and the cube ever since. And people who have been in complex situations where there might be competing perspectives will say, stop, let's see what we can learn from one another. Maybe you're looking at this problem from a different perspective and seeing something that I'm not seeing.
If we look at the history of patient safety over the last 2 decades, we can see governments, professional regulators, and senior academics frequently resorting to the same cures: to change the structure, to change the regulatory environment, to interfere with the educational system, in order to try to deal with some of the fundamental problems in bringing a safer system to bear on patient care. The last 2 decades have shown that that is a very inadequate solution.
The regulatory environment and the sets of standards may be important, but you have a situation sometimes when people are looking up at the regulator rather than into the organisation on the front line.
Outcomes are caused by networks of causes, the interacting things, which are highly unstable. The interactions are very hard to describe, they're very complex, and you're fooling yourself if you think that it was a simple thing. It wasn't simple. There's much you don't know.
People don't have time. It's not part of anyone's job, generally. It's just regarded as something that sort of happens on the edges. And there are very fundamental and simple reasons that if you want something to really change, you need to resource a team, give them time, not distract them with other things, and we don't. In healthcare, improvement is meant to happen in some sort of magical fashion, simply by exhortation.
Examples have shown us that in order to have the sustainable improvement, we need to change the entire organization. We call it transformation, where improvement becomes something that they do every day. Those who have studied initiatives that have failed have come back with a number of reasons. One is loss of a sense of urgency. where it's no longer the important thing to do in the organization, loss of leadership commitment to the work, change in focus immediately to something else, or focusing on how much does it cost us to actually improve. Maybe we could just let it go and focus on something else totally.
Vision is critically important. We talk about leadership in terms of understanding a situation. So there are two sides to that for someone who is in a leadership position. One of them is what's happening. And it's oftentimes difficult to assess what's happening because in any complex problem, there are usually many distractions. People have a lot of concerns that are in addition to whatever happened with the patient. There are legal considerations, there are protocol considerations. People think about their professional career. There are a lot of distractions.
If you're going to change to a learning system, to become a member or a leader even in a learning system, you're going to have to deal with that environment, and the environment is not going to change, and that's the thing we're going to have to realize. It'll be a long time before the average politician or the average executive or the average board change the way it thinks. I don't predict that's going to happen quickly. So if you want to become a leader of improvement in that context, you're going to have to develop pretty thick skin. You're going to have to somehow deal with the incoming surveillance and tolerate it, manage it, survive it, while you get about the much more important job of learning and growth and development, best of all with a group, with a team of people who are like-minded. And that's, that's I think I just described a revolution. It's that disruptive to think so differently from the environment around you.
An organization like a hospital, because of the complexity of what it does, needs the organic, gradual, evolutionary growth of safety from the front line. And that can only be achieved when every person working there feels a responsibility to keep looking, to keep thinking, and to keep improving, and making that improvement infectious to those around them.
Ja, kulturen avgör ju hur man i sista hand genomför sina arbetsuppgifter, och det gäller i stort som i smått, så det är väldigt viktigt att hantera kulturfrågorna. Och som ledare så påverkar man dem antingen man vill eller ej. Så att när man har ett kulturarbete så måste det ju stämma med ens egna värderingar, annars är man inte trovärdig. Här har vi jobbat mycket med kulturfrågorna. Vi är inte på något sätt färdiga, men vi jobbar med dem. Och vi fann att nyttjar man passionen som finns hos professionella yrkespersoner i vården, så finns det en vilja att ändra kulturen. Och passionen som vi har funnit är ju önskan att vilja göra gott för patienter. Det var det som vi alla börjar läsa till läkare eller sköterska eller undersköterska för att göra. Och det är en väldigt stark drivkraft för att skapa en god kultur i en sjukvårdsorganisation.
Culture has many definitions, but it could be summarized simply by saying the way people do things around here. And of course that means actually the way they think about things, the way they think about their jobs, the way they think about their colleagues, the way they think about their opportunities. And getting that changed when it is wrong, when it is dictatorial, when it is mechanistic, when it is demanding but not supporting, is really very difficult. And you will hear from many doctors, particularly junior doctors, that they do not feel that the organisation for which they work has a culture which is supportive and understanding of the burden they carry and the responsibilities they discharge.
This is what people do when no one's looking. They have certain values that they stick to no matter what. They don't take shortcuts.
It's quite obvious that the culture of healthcare organizations, interesting enough, around the world, is not unique to America, it's not unique to one or two hospitals, but it's true in every country that we're aware of, that the medical culture across the board is fairly dysfunctional.
Ready yet? Well, we've just got to complete the baseline checks.
Put it in rather harsh terms, we often have a culture of disrespect in which people treat each other rather badly. And the evidence for that is shocking and pervasive and profound.
You go into an operating theatre and observe, and sometimes the lead surgeon very senior consultant, and they lead, sometimes even in these days, by a certain element of fear perhaps. People, you just get the impression that they're not happy to speak up.
Go and find one.
I'll try, but you know how the system works.
Study after study shows that most nurses feel they've been abused by physicians. Study after study shows patients feel they haven't been treated properly. House officers, residents who aren't treated well.
Effective leadership means that people in your team are able to challenge, are able to speak up, are able to assert their position, because these complex operations that are being done demand huge amounts of concentration. And is it possible to do all that and lead a team at the same time?
Healthcare grew up in as a very hierarchical, autocratic enterprise, because it was all centered around the physician who had the knowledge and the skills. And as we've broadened that, and as we've gotten many more people into the mix, part of our teams, physicians haven't always changed their attitude.
After a while, in a leadership environment which isn't encouraging curiosity and learning and aspiration and teamwork and joy, after a while, the worker decathects work. They're still a caring person, or as noble as their leaders are, but work has become an environment in which they feel helpless. And what fool would keep trying endlessly when the world says no, you give up? I'll tell you what those people do. They go back home and take their passion somewhere.
So the idea that you do what I say, and if you don't, I will show you why you should type of thing has really got to change. And changing that hierarchical system has turned out to be the major challenge. What we've seen is that in institutions that have succeeded in doing that, the improvements are dramatic.
For reasons I don't understand, and not just in healthcare, especially in Western organizations, Western cultures, we use a lot of carrot and stick thinking, a lot of incentive thinking, a lot of inspection thinking. It's like, if I watch closely enough and I measure what I want and I hold your feet to the fire, things get better. That is pervasive. I mean, that's how we manage our, so much of our society. It isn't true.
In many organizations, it's an environment of competition, dog eat dog, of who can arise above whom. And that expends a great deal of energy and can be a huge distraction. And those leaders who create that spirit of cooperation and who are able to execute that spirit of cooperation can achieve an enormous amount.
Organizations think their biggest resource is money? Oh, no. It's the intrinsic human spirit, the growth spirit that most people come to work with. Of course, if the environment's created to drive that spirit out, and it's done so successfully, then a big misinterpretation starts to enter. They don't really want to do well. We have to make them do well. They don't understand the importance of X. Sure they do. You just haven't asked them. But I say to the leader, you think you have budget problems, go for what's abundant, which is in the end the spirit of the people. You have a choice. You can send that spirit home and erase it from your organization, or you can invite it into your building. And I see far too little of the invitation. I'm absolutely sure that we can, quote, cut the budget safely in almost all cases through improvement, but not with a MEDAX. It doesn't work.
So if a boss says to his subordinates, how can I help you become a success? Or an individual worker leading up to his boss or her boss says, how can I make you a success? Or leading across, how can we succeed together? That it really changes the metric of what we're doing, how we're going about doing it, and what we might be able to achieve together. And we find those situations that require collaboration best achieve that collaboration when everyone can engage one another in that way.
Kultur i de här sammanhangen är ju, en god kultur är helt avgörande. Det är inte den enda komponenten som behövs. Men du kommer ingen vart i de här avseendena att få till den här strategiska, långsiktiga förändringen om du inte har en bra kultur eller uppnår en bra kultur. Vi kan uttrycka det på många olika sätt. Till exempel att kultur äter affärsplanet till frukost. Det finns många uttryck. Vad jag tror är ett problem i sammanhanget, och det är också av egen erfarenhet, det är att kultur är så svårt att definiera. Det är oftast behövs någon slags översättning eller förklaring eller tolkning av vad kultur är. Och här kommer ledarskapet in, att du kanske behöver som ledare förklara eller tolka eller översätta, men också visa i praktisk handling, i det du säger, i det du gör, att det här är vad jag menar med bra kultur. En bra säkerhetskultur, en bra kultur för att uppnå det vi vill.
My bias is that culture follows task. So action over time leads to the change in the culture. And I think a focus on patient safety across the whole system, from domestic supervisors working inside wards, to clerks who were gathering the notes, up to the executive leadership of our health boards, all focused on that same important aim.
När vi arbetar som ledare i sjukvården och vill ändra kulturen till en säker kultur, så kan vi inte bara säga till personalen hur de ska handla och agera. Att de ska sprita händerna, att de ska använda kortärmat och sådana saker. Det finns saker som man som personal i en sjukvårdsorganisation inte kan påverka. Och det måste vi som ledare ta på oss ansvaret för att se till att det blir förändringar.
There's a modern view of so-called high reliability organizations. It's based on studies of organizations that are able to perform with extremely high fidelity under very stressful circumstances. High reliability organizations don't assume they'll succeed. They assume that hazards and risks lurk everywhere. They're not relaxed. A second is an acceptance of complexity, a reluctance to simplify. Simple explanations aren't generally accurate ones, not in high reliability environments either. They're complex causal systems, and these places are avid to understand them. A third characteristic is resilience. A capacity at the sharp end to adjust at the moment, because look, the hazards, they pop up and they go away. You need this kind of local autonomy and ability to act swiftly. Another characteristic is sensitivity to operations. This is flatness in an organization where the senior leaders, the executive, knows what's happening in the workplace. The last property is it's a kind of democratization property. They call it deference to expertise. And the theory is, in a high reliability organization, the problem moves around until it finds the person or the mind that has the answer, and it doesn't matter where in the hierarchy they are. It's as valuable if that answer comes from an ensign as from the admiral, and this willingness to draw on the resource of knowledge throughout the organization, another property. These are cultural characteristics and explain a lot more about whether a place is going to succeed or not under stress than what the manual says, or whether the CEO has given the right speech. And that's a fundamentally important idea, which is that in the modern world of improvement, quality is the strategy. It is the strategy. It's not attached to it, it's not connected to it, it's not supported by it, it is the strategy. And then there's execution. And this is the other serious gap. Quality, safety, quality, it's not pasted onto the organization. It's not them doing it over there. It's not a plug-in. It is the organization. Healthcare doesn't seem to have bought that. It's like we say, well, we have to pursue quality even while we control costs. No. Quality is the mechanism for cost control. We have to give good care even while we improve. No. Care is improvement. The great news is ideas. I mean, we really know a ton about what better care looks like. We have great examples, we have good theory, and in the area of safety, I mean, we have a half century now of great science on safety in other industries and in our own. We haven't got a problem with ideas. Will? Yes. If you don't believe it can be better, if you don't insist it be better, it won't be better. So that level of commitment, I mean, you have to find it in healthcare. We're not going to improve. And so that connection, and that's a governance issue to me. That's boards, that's leaders, that's clinical and lay leaders. Do you intend to be safer? And I'm not talking about a game here.